Hello, welcome to this level 4 video. My name is Allie with A. Marie Speaks, and this is part of my energetic system series. As I have said numerous times, but I will say again, this is a series designed for people who are new or not new to metaphysical ideas of energy, exchanges, and systems. I hope to be bringing down some plain language about exactly how we interact as systems, how we operate our systems, and also what type of systems are available out in the world that we see that we operate within. Hopefully, by observing these things and talking about them and creating this sort of walkthrough, we will be able to more clearly operate our own systems to get the repercussions that we want, the expectations that we desire within our own system workings and processes and functions of our own being, but also to get what we want out of systems and out of our service with externals and others out there. And for those interactions to play out more closely to our intentions and to our own personal desires. It's hopefully, if you're following along and you have watched through these levels, then it's helping you to better define yourself as a system and to see these different layers within yourself as real conscious worlds that you can dive into and be a part of and learn from and actually listen and gain insights within that working. So that's sort of my intro in case anybody is relatively new. And just as a reminder for all of us who are not new, right, to sort of just reiterate and reaffirm the ground we're standing on as we get started. For this video for level 4, I want to circle back around and sort of draw a boundary around what we're talking about with the system, you and me as a whole, when we're talking about the system as a whole. And how we interact with external things. And what are those other external things that we're interacting with? For reference, right, the last 3 videos that I have put out were sort of a little bit of segregated views at each of the bosses of the external service torrido. And I talked a little bit about the mind, the body, and the spirit, and what those layers sort of play out like, and what sort of distinct boundaries each of those are made up of. And that's the dissecting of the external system. And today we're going to put it all back together and sort of look at it as a whole again. So when all of those 3 can come together and work well together, we have a more tangible, obvious, and well-known boundary of interaction set around our system that has a layer and a level of conscious awareness to it that you or me, as the observer, as the conscious creator who is embodying this level, like we know ourselves. We have self-recognition. And that in itself is this sort of boundary that I'm talking about and that I want to reiterate and circle back around to for this level 4 video. And then after we sort of reaffirm our boundaries, then we'll take it into the next topic about the external systems and how they each play out, a positively aligned service to others sort of external model, and then we have the more negatively aligned service to self external service model, and we'll talk about both of those and how they run and what their alignments look like. But before we go there, I really just want to sort of jump back again, again and again, always, right, to the foundations, to remember exactly what the rules are, what we're talking about. Because when we understand as creator consciousness that we, as the observer, set the boundary and we set the purpose, and the purpose will then define the system functions. You know, it's a sequential falling of dominoes, and it happens in that way. So just to keep this in mind, because when we start to compare ourselves to others, when we start to interact with others, other people in our direct world, like family and relatives, people that we know well, like friends and social relationships like that, people who we know sort of more touch and go that are, you know, sort of like background characters in our lives, and strangers, and people who we just see in passing, that are just a glance of a face. There is a variety and a level of interaction available, right? And it's important for us to remember that as the aware creator consciousness in our system, we set all the boundaries, and we really determine and consent and have this conscious power of consent to be involved with others. And there's a responsibility with that, right? And I talked a lot about that with having a sovereign right to life and freedom of choice and freedom to be, right? That we have to allow that for ourselves, but also hold space for others to allow for themselves too. And for us to not be wrapped up and concerned with what they're doing with their space or how much space they are taking up or whatever the case is, because in imagination space is unlimited. This is infinite in the void. So we don't need to worry about what anybody else is ever doing. What we really have to focus on and worry about and spend our mental energy, not worry, but, you know, use our mental capacity and functions to discern about, is what we are doing with our system, what our system is functioning as. And like we're talking about in level 4 here, we're not just talking about, you know, our system and how it functions inside of us. This is the next step, is how our system functions with others. And I've used the corporate banking model a lot. I'm not going to get into that right now, but you know, how we treat others who interact with us at every moment, all these different exchanges, all are under this umbrella here of external service and the external torrido that we're talking about with this whole system. Now, I am giving this sort of explanation to clear some ground and to hopefully reaffirm the right to conscious boundary that we are experiencing here in this life, in this playscape, this section of reality, dimensions and densities, whatever you want to look at it as. I don't really want to talk about too much about the whole bigger picture right now. That we will definitely get into a little bit more pretty soon. But for right now, just looking at this first layer of external interaction is really enough. You know, it's infinite in itself, and there's a lot of working here. So we'll just sort of remember that later we will talk, you know, about external services and the bigger external things. But for right now, talking about where our exact boundary meets the external world and how we interact with the external world at all times, even in the littlest ways and in these micro ways, and in these more sort of layers of consciousness, or these other multidimensional ways that aren't exactly like how you're sitting on the chair, how your, you know, bum meets the chair and your feet are on the floor, not exactly that distinct way of meeting exterior world. Yeah, that's a whole part of it, but I'm wanting to bring up and help us remember the energetic layers of it, how we meet the world energetically, in these more conscious boundaries that are created, that are more of thought realm, more intangible protection kind of things, spirit things, right? We have to remember that there's all these layers that work around us. And we, as the conscious creator of your entity and your system, you get the final say of what comes in and what comes out. You run the show. And all of those managers and bosses down the workings of your system, they all listen to you. They all hear you as the CEO, head boss, ultimate yes or no kind of thing. So when we can empower ourselves and remember that we do consent to, and we do have the authority to revoke consent or deny or allow and accept at all times, in all different ways. Having the responsibility for that, I really wanted to bring up and allow us to remember here at this sort of level 4 before we talk about others. Because here's sort of the issue in the catch-22, and the reason I put this out is because when we start to talk about service to others, service to self, am I a good person, am I a bad person, a lot of it, especially when we don't have a clear vessel and we're infested with shadows and there's all different kinds of trauma and old wounds and new ones and stuff, it is very easy and it is very convenient to place blame all in the external and to become very wrapped up in the external out there that seems so tangible and real, and to place too much worth on it and to invest too much mental and spiritual energy out there into creating too much solidity and too many expectations. Because in reality, when we look at this and we start to understand what's actually happening out there, reality's kind of a blur into hallucinations and sort of a real life, organic, original, virtual reality, playscape, built of infinite intelligence everywhere, in many different flavors, shades, and forms, from unbelievably small to unbelievably large. And so, you can hear and understand these many different ways that we are able to interact, and the many different system functions that will be tailor-fit to speak certain languages and to operate in certain layers, to do certain work. When we kind of don't have our sovereign truth aligned, and we are placing blame out in the world, when we are really wrapped up in external projections and these external models and stuff, we get to thinking easily that we give up our power, and the whole lens and shift happens to the servitude, to where you give away your sovereign right and you feel like you have to be a part of this giant thing, society that's already there, and this whole makeup that's really sort of this matrix negative overlay. I won't really get into it, but we feel forced to become a part of it, and that in itself, sets the tone in this negative atmosphere already. So it's no surprise, and it's nobody's fault, and it is a makeup. It's a test and an obstacle for us to get out of this mindset, to break out of it, to see that our binoculars or lens or telescope or whatever has sort of been stuck on the pivot point and really zoomed into this one part of the sky, but there's a whole sky still to look at. So when we break out of that and we're able to look around and remember that service out there is much more than what we've just sort of tagged it down to. Oh, did I do this for this person for this reason? Or did I do it for a self-serving reason? Or am I doing everything for everyone else? Or am I serving myself? Am I selfish or not? Am I all for the good, or am I all for the bad? And am I light or dark? Am I serving God, or am I serving the devil? There's a lot of this sort of extreme contrast that come into play when we're talking about external service. And if you don't have a firm footing on the one truth, like I said, you get very easily have that telescope be stuck by the blaring of the overlay, that tells you just stay and look over here, I really have tried to build this course and everything to get us out of that, and for us to be able to look wherever we want at whatever time we want and assess what we see as clearly as we can, to make notes on it and remember it, and to then move on to the next thing, and to get what we can each time. And when we start to look at ourselves, and our service is an external model in that way, and to remember, oh yeah, my external torrido service is not actually just about what I'm doing for other people, or what my job is, or what my career is, or what kind of service I'm offering to society or people around me. But it's so much more than that. It's how I serve myself. It's how I serve the nature and organic life, and how I serve the thought world, and how I interact with my breath, and how I interact with my room, how I move through my day, how I take in different tones and ways that people say things, how I interpret body language of others, how I express my own. Am I honest or not with that? Am I receiving people's projections as clearly and honestly or not? Am I taking and holding space for the fact that they could have great shadow that's projecting inaccurate things directly out of them that they don't even realize they're putting off something that they don't mean to, because they are stuck in liar loops and some kind of false projections? Or can I even have a capacity to even start to think of others in that way? Or is it all about me and what I need and getting what I have to have? And as my day is completely and solely focused on, oh, I need this, and oh, I have to have this, and I don't have enough of this. Oh, can this person give me that? If your external models are always out there, what can I get from this person? Oh, how can I get back X, Y, and Z that I need? There's a whole different flavor and flow to that, and to all of the exchanges that you will allow to yourself, and to what you'll get away and what you'll bring in, versus looking out at the world and saying, I have a burning desire within me to give some sort of thing, to provide a service, to build something, to sing, to create, to draw, to paint, whatever the thing is. Each of us has something in there that we do, or that we're called to seek out, or called to build or discover more about. And are you allowing that to be the focus of your external? Finding that out there, offering that out there, seeing others who enjoy those things, who want to be a part of those, or who are looking for that service or that thing that you can build or make. Because then when you've already loved to do it and you offer it out and someone picks it up because they like that, the retribution to get back, the thanks and gratitude for that, no matter if it comes in a form of a fiat currency because they pay you for it, or because it comes as a beautiful smile or a great hug because they just love it and love you, all of those are the same currencies. They're all different variations of the same currency and energetics coming back into your system. And how we receive those things also matters. And this also is a huge part of external service that we're going to get into sort of in the second section, is about how you receive back. Because when we start to talk about the external models as wholes, and what they're seeking, what drives them, and which way they're flowing, whether they're flowing up and out or down and in, it plays a huge role on what happens with the energies, how the external service speaks with the inner core, right? And the inner core, how it speaks through the external service. And then through both of those songs and dances, we have the spirit who holds space for all of those and who watches all of them and who creates this presence of it all, a display of it, right? Presentation of the whole, of those two interactions. Of course, many of they're infinite interactions in their own cases, but of course they're representations of the Greek too. But we also, see, this is the thing, is that having the conscious points to set boundaries and to do conscious work between those, that's the whole point. We have to have that. And we also have to have that drive and seek to want to know more about it, to want to learn and teach about it, to want to discover more and alchemize it, to uncover what we can about it and evolve it into more. We can only, and we do that best and most accurately with, with the best results when we, as conscious creators, know about the boundaries we're setting, know that we have full all power in our world to say yes or no to things, to consent or revoke consent, to be a part of or to disassociate, right? And that nothing of our worth, nothing about our actual organic energy currency that our system runs on and our system is a part of is ever tainted or just less or more just because you're part of some sort of service or you're not part of some sort of service. We all have this initial starting point. It's only one value. It's the gift of life, and that's it. And when we remember that and we own that, then we have the power to set the boundaries. And then we have a real conscious awareness of where the boundaries are at and why, what we're allowing through and why. And of course, when we're talking about service, right, it's so important to remember that as we're setting our own boundaries, and we either uphold them or we allow others to exchange within them, we share things and we create other systems out there with others, and we step into these creations with them. Our personal system, our self, cannot be compromised or changed or impacted when we step into these creations and we make these other things with others. There's always the foundational truth, the sort of cord that is you, that is just unbreakable, untouchable. It cannot be impacted in any way. You can hide from it. You can try to distort it and lie to yourself about it. And that's where the great lie comes from. That's where the initial distortions come from, and the negative alignment in itself is birthed out of. But it doesn't change the fact that it's there. It doesn't, and that it's yours and that you're responsible for it. And that tie has something to do with the makeup of the densities that we're in and the individuation of ourselves and the growth of humanity and mankind and also God's great purpose for us. And I'm not going to get into all of that, and I tend to not worry too much about that. I love to ruminate on it and talk about possibilities about it, but I don't do a lot of nailing down and saying this is definite sets and I know this kind of stuff. Frameworking for the big pictures, because I don't, and I don't want to put out false ideas like I do, and I let it be, because there's a great wondrous mystery of manyness happening here, of God seeking out itself in every way possible. And so I like to leave space open for that, and to find comfort in knowing that I don't know everything, and that it's beyond my capacity as human in this life form, the role that I've been designated by God to play. For some reason I chose, and my higher self chose, whatever the reasons are, they're here, and bam, I have these coordinates for a reason. And that's the kind of ground, the sovereign anchoring that I'm talking about, that I want to really help people to learn and feel for themselves so they can set their own boundaries. And as we get into comparing to others and talk about how we interact with others, we can always ground in that anchor and remember that our worth is never tainted. We are just as equally worthy as everyone else out there, and that all these other tailor fittings and these altercations that we make, alterations, but altercations sometimes as well, they're just that. They are attributes, design elements that we're adding to the house. They're the interior decorations and the paint and the roof and stuff, and the garden. But they don't change the four pillars, the foundation, the structure, that it's a house that we live in and that it's a home, right? So with that sort of firm foundation reset, I'd just like to remind us all that your vessel, your body, your home, and your anchor are your responsibility. and that all interactions that we do with others, and when we're exchanging out there with others, we're part of others, it's all testing ground for ourselves, for how we choose to react and respond, what we choose to take in, how we hear another, what we hear from them, and how we react within them and choose to respond. It's our own test with ourselves. It really has nothing to do with them. And actually, whatever's going on in their world at the same time, simultaneously, is their own tests, their own versions that are private to them, and their own beautiful coordinates that God has set for divine reasons for them. And it's none of my business, just like it's none of your business. And when we can relax more into that and trust that Creator, the before and after, has a role and plan for all of us, that each coordinate in the graph has a purpose, its place setting matters, and is designated by some intelligent, infinite, divine design, we can worry less about who's collecting what, if you're service to others or service to self, or, oh, what are they doing? And oh, are they taking my service this way or that way? Did they feel my intentions? Am I coming across to this way or that way? You know, we can really get out of all of that and stop worrying about that and not allow that to take up our focus when we talk about service. When we can really ground in our own boundaries and remember that beautiful truth that we speak for ourselves here at the end of this great journey. You know, we are responsible and held accountable for our journey here. It doesn't have anything else to do with how somebody else was affected by it, or what they took away from it, or whether they saw your truth or not. It doesn't, none of that matters. It's whether you see your truth and you hear it. Do you listen to it honestly? And do you then respond as honestly as you can? And we can really ground into that and build that, seeking our highest good, and allow our boundaries to be like a filter around us, to bring our highest good to us, and to also know that all of our actions are flowing out of our highest good. It's like a tethering, so you don't really worry about whether you're doing good service or not, or whether you're a good person or not. You know, it really helps to get out of the dire morality of judgment, because when you know each and every little function is done with honest seeking of your highest good to do best for you and others, then you know you don't worry. You won't worry about the accumulation, because you know every little bit has been done as honestly as possible. But when every little bit is done shadowy and done like cutting corners and done in the lazy way, the accumulation can be something to very much worry about, right? And again, this is all on you, and this is in your inner reflections, because we cast our light out and we cast our service out. Our energy goes through, you know, like a prism. And if you are more shadowed and hiding things from yourself, creating corners to stuff things in, to forget about, and try to create presentation that you think others are going to be comfortable with, you know, you're not doing a good service to yourself in there. You're doing disservice to yourself, actually. You're running a negative system. And we'll get more into that, too, about how it plays a fake face and these tricks and loops that we get tagged into. But just know that if you hear that and you just get in your own place and clean some of those corners up, do some seeking, shine some light in there, do some good self-care for yourself. Go and remember the things that light you up and shine light into those more shadowy areas. Clean them up a little bit. You know, breathe away the debris. Let things go that don't serve you anymore. And remember, you know, that you are the conscious observer of your reality. So you can get in there and clean out whatever you want. You have the power to do that. And yeah, so I'm going to leave it there. I've talked a little too long, but I feel like it's important to keep recircling back to the foundations as we build on these levels, because each focus, you know, internal and external, has its own nuances to the same perspective, so, and the same truths. So I just feel like it's important. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Still like getting over, recuperating from this detox here after Christmas. But yeah, just to reiterate, is so important as we're building on to these topics. So thank you again so much for your audience. Thank you for listening, taking the time to do this great service for yourself. Learn about your systems, learn about your service. I would love to hear your replies or comments. Send me emails always. It's in the description for you. Or you can put comments in if you'd like others to hear your words, that'd be wonderful. And I will be following up with a sort of 101 infographic typical video of the external models next. So you can look forward to that. And in the meantime, you can always find me on my website directly, amariespeaks.com, or over on Telegram, where I share links and updates and personal little tidbits on all things throughout the day. So if you're looking for more, you could find me there as well. Thank you again for your beautiful contribution to our collective and for your audience and time and energy. I appreciate it so much. I'll check you next time.